what actually happens when you leave money to a minor child. I had the experience of representing more than one adult, either guardian or parent of a minor child who inherited money from a deceased parent and the deceased parent's estate. There are many stories I can tell, but one of them that really stuck out to me was I was involved in a probate proceeding where a 37-year-old gentleman passed away from an underlying illness that nobody really knew he had. And so he didn't seem like he had a lot of assets. He owned a house, a vehicle, had a decent job, but didn't have like a bunch of money in the bank or anything really fancy per se, but did have minor children. At one point in time, he had a life insurance policy through his employer that had a death benefit of, I think, maybe 2 times the salary or 1.5 times the salary, but it was in excess of $100,000. The policy was taken out, I don't know when, I guess, but probably many years prior when this gentleman had started his job. And so the policy actually only had the oldest child out of 3 children as the beneficiary of this life insurance. And so we made it through this entire probate proceeding. There was a house and some other various smaller assets, but things that the titles had to be changed in order for this family to be able to move forward. And we got all the way through that, and then unbeknownst to all of us until later into the proceeding, there was this life insurance policy with this single beneficiary who was like 11 or 12 at the time. So we end up having to do a separate proceeding, right? We have to go back to the court and say, hey, we found this policy. It didn't go through the probate process because it's a non-probate asset, because it has a beneficiary. We need to handle this as well. And the court said to us, well, where does the kid live now? Because that's the appropriate county. So we had to switch counties, do a new proceeding, and get somebody legally designated as this child's guardian and conservator so that we had somebody who could take control and responsibility of this money until the child turned 18. So we go through that process with the court. We go through a specialty type of proceeding where the legally designated adult individual could go back to the insurance company, get the money dispersed to the minor child care of this adult who was going to take control of it, and then the money got put into a protected or restricted account that is being invested and will continue on until such time as this child turns 18. Now, remember I told you that this gentleman who passed away had 3 children, but this account is just for the child whose name was on it. It doesn't matter that there were other children. It doesn't matter what I think is right or what the family thinks is right. When this oldest child turns 18, he is legally entitled to the money in excess of $100,000 and could go down to the bank on his 18th birthday and say, cash me out. And whatever he decides to do with the money at that point in time legally is his business, and he's under no obligation to split that money with his siblings. He's under no obligation to spend it wisely or spend it well. It's his. And that's it. That's the end of the story. I think a lot of us would agree that that's probably not the best outcome for a sum of money of really any size, but especially in excess of $100,000 or $120,000 or whatever it was, to have that money become, the sole property of one singular 18-year-old on their birthday. And there are options. Like, this doesn't have to be the reality of the story for anyone who has minor children. So, you need to consider those options and look at those options and decide what's going to make the best sense for the goals that you want to achieve for your children if something were ever to happen to you.
If this content was useful for you, don't forget to subscribe.